I'm Bobby Broussard, and I'm an alcoholic. I sobered up on May 17th, 1974. And through no fault of my own, my wife found Al-Anon before I got here. And there were many divorce attorneys involved before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. So my butt was on fire when I got here. But I'm supposed to talk to you about step 12, and I'm going to have to carry some of my story into this thing. My first sponsor was PJ Benoit. And he did a lot of 12-step work. The reason he did a lot of 12-step work was because he was the assistant fire chief for the city of Lafayette. And they furnished him with a van and gas. His gas was free, so he made all the 12-step calls. Nobody else could afford the gas. And I went with him. I lived a block away from him. And back then in 74, 75, we used to make calls on these people, and they had no treatment centers back then. They had a detox unit at Charity Hospital. And we drive up there, and I'd turn the lights on and the sirens on and wake up those drunks when we make these 12-step calls. And of course, he'd keep slapping my hands. He didn't want me to do that. But we brought him to what we thought Alcoholics Anonymous was. And the thinking back then was go to meetings, chase drunks, and don't drink. Well, after about 5 years of going to meetings, chasing drunks, and not drinking, I wanted to drink again. I had heard a guy when I was 2 years sober, I heard a guy speak from Lake Charles. His name was Joe. And I called him. I said, Joe, I'm in trouble. Mentally, something's wrong. I can't get, I'm uneasy all the time. He said, well, I'm moving to Baytown, Texas, but if you come spend the weekend with me next weekend, we can talk. So I did, and I went to Baytown, Texas, and I was talking to Joe about being my sponsor. And he said, Bobby, let me tell you something now. You're going to have to do exactly what I tell you to do, the way I tell you to do it, when I tell you to do it, or you can haul your coon ass back to Lafayette. It's up to you. And at that time, I'd have been willing to turn my life and my will over to care of a jackass. So he started taking me through the work in the book, right out the book, reading it, and boom, boom. I spent a weekend there, and we got all the way to the fourth step. I found today that I can get a lot further than that in a weekend because I've worked with a lot of guys out here. I don't know, 2,500, maybe 3,000 we've worked with at our home. But Danny and myself, my wife, come on back, and I started sponsoring people one-on-one. Very, very quickly. About 5 years of sobriety, 10 of us got together and said, why don't we work out of the big book as a group? You know, we'll meet and we'll invite the ones we want there. So we couldn't call it a group. So because you were there by invitation only. So we called it a workshop. We had 10 people, went through the book together. All 10 of those people are either still sober or have died sober. So I know it works that way. The little group that I belonged to, it was called the Keep It Simple group in Broussard. And the guys decided to do like what we did with these 10 people, meet once a week, an hour and a half, start going through the book from the beginning, 2 paragraphs, talk, 2 paragraphs, talk. It took us 5.5 months to go through the book, doing it that way, and stopping when it was time to do the 4th step, stopping when it was time to do the 5th step, laying down all of the names and people and institutions that we owed amends to in the 8th step, and then beginning to do all of that while we were working the rest of the steps. And it took us 5.5 months, and we continued. Now, I left Broussard 21 years ago, and moved out here this way. And as you can see, we live on the water now. We got a pretty nice place. 6 bedroom, 4.5 baths for me, my wife, and a dog. So anyway, God's been good to us. So we start going through the book this way. And when I left Broussard after I got this home built, I had about 350 people we had taken through the big book together. An hour and a half a week, two paragraphs at a time, discussing and doing what it tells us to do. And 3 out of 300 people got drunk. 297 stayed sober. And they're still sober, or dead sober. So the book says practical experience shows that nothing, zilch, will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th step. We move out here, build this home, get married. Danny invites a few girls over for a weekend. We don't have enough room. We got 2 extra bedrooms. We got an extra room in the front where we could put people in. So we didn't have enough room. So she got me busy. I built a room downstairs, put a bunk bed, a regular bed, and a queen size bed, and a bathroom. Next weekend, she gets a bunch of more women out here, and still not enough room. So I built another room on there. This is all under my house, under the porch. I built another room over there and put 2 more bunk beds in it. Perfect. So we can put a dozen, maybe 14 people up for a weekend. And like I said, we probably did over 350. No, I'm talking about 3,500 drunks that way for the last 20 years. And it's been a joy. I'll tell you what, we've got friends. I got 2 calls today. One was from a guy I sponsored. He lives in Miami, Florida today. He's a plumber. And the other one was a guy that I sponsored. I both sponsored them all here, who lives in right outside of Washington, D.C. He retired. He's a doctor of psychology. Can you imagine a coon-ass sponsoring a doctor of psychology? But Glenn called, and he talked about the hurricane we went through here once when he was first getting sober. So people from all over the country have been here and done what we do. And when they leave here, not a damn one of them leaves here without being told, you better find yourself somebody. Now, where do we find drunks at today to work with? You find them in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. They get here out of these treatment centers, they think they know everything. But how many of them are going to ask you to sponsor you unless you offer? So when my guys leave a weekend here, they go to meetings and raise their hands when they ask somebody if they got something to say. And they say, you want somebody to sponsor you? Here I am. My time's available. We've learned a few little tricks about 12-step, especially newcomers. You don't ever turn one of them loose with a sheet of paper, say, go do your 4th step. Go line it out. Follow the directions in the book. You don't do that. You'll never hear from them again. They're gone to the wind. What I do is when we get to the 4th step, we work together. We draw it out. Now, I've got a form that I took out of the book, and it's all laid out for them. Just write down what you need to write down. And so we do a 4th and 5th step together. We do a 7th step on our knees. We did a 3rd step on our knees. And there's a way to get those people to understand too, also how to find the higher power of their own understanding. Back there on page 28 and 29 in the big book, there's a half a page blank on page 29. I've got that split up with a line on top saying God, left side, past associations, and on the right side, present choice. On the preceding page, it tells us we have to form a relationship with a power that is simple and understandable. Simple and understandable. Now, I don't care what they believe in. It could be a big 300-pound black dude with a big afro wearing a pink tutu. That's their business what they believe in. But it has to be something that they understand. I don't try to impress them. The power that I believe in God. His name is God as far as I'm concerned. And that's what I call him. I spend a lot of time with him. I spend at least an hour a day on prayer and meditation. I do that in my boat on the lake back there every day, at least an hour, sometimes twice a day. So I get sometimes 2 hours a day prayer and meditation. I don't catch many fish, but I pull a line behind, 2 lines behind my boat. Once in a while, will bite it, but most of the time nothing bites. So I get to pray a lot today, and I need it. There's I don't know, the 12 step, having had a spiritual awakening, first part, as the result of these steps. Second part is we try to carry this message to alcoholics, first 11 steps to alcoholics. And the third part, practice these principles in all of our affairs. If you work the first 11 steps, we promise that we'll have a spiritual awakening. The problem, though, is most of us will get there, we'll have the awakening, and then we'll go to sleep. We don't continue. We don't continue to intensely work with other alcoholics. We go to sleep. A friend of mine from Seattle probably said it best. He says, it's kind of like playing baseball, If you want to play, you got to get on the field. You can't stay in the stands and be a spectator. And that's what most of us in alcoholics are, spectators. We're watching everybody else run around like a bunch of ants. Today, you can't watch them do that because you got to sit at home and you got to talk to them over the telephone. But it'll be coming back. I've got people calling me every week wanting to know when we're going to start to get together on weekends. Well, I'm 81 years old and my wife's 80 years old, and I ain't going to have nobody coming into this house that don't give us something, a Chinese virus that's going to kill us. I'm sorry. I may have another 4 or 5 years to live. I don't know. I'm getting old up there. So we're not going to start anything until this. Either we got the vaccine or everybody's dead but us. But anyway, 12 step, there's not a whole lot to it. There's not a whole lot to talk about it. It all has to do with doing. Doing. When I was about 5 years old, I heard Chuck Chamberlain say one time, you take care of God's kids and they'll take care of you. That's been my experience. I don't really need anything monetarily. I had a business that I started when I was 5 years sober. And I sold it for $1 million when I retired to move out here. It's doing something that I had never done. I started fixing air conditioners. I had never worked on an air conditioner in my life till I started working on air conditioners. It's kind of like getting sober. You don't know how to get sober until you start getting sober. And that business has been good. I started that business in a little town called Broussard, Louisiana. It wasn't named after me. It wasn't named after my family. They tried to run me off a bunch of times. The chief of police was at my house all the time, knocking on my door. My wife would be calling and telling him about the way I treated her. And I didn't treat her too well. I'm not proud of that. And I caused her a lot of misery, Show you what kind of drunk I was. My wife was having a baby on the 7th floor at Lourdes Hospital one time, and I was downstairs in the emergency room getting some beer bottles and cue sticks taken out of my head and stitched up. That's the kind of drunk I was. It wasn't too joyful. Let me put it to you that way. Third weekend of April 1974. She said, I'm going to Lake Charles. Would you watch the kids this weekend? I said, yes. But then I started thinking about it. And, I knew a few people in Lake Charles, being in the fight business. I used to box a lot. I knew Maxie. I knew Tex. They were both pimps looking for good-looking women. And I wasn't about to let her go to Lake Charles by herself with some strangers. Turned out to be a convention of Alcoholics Anonymous with about 300 drunks. Never met none of y'all, I don't think. Listened to y'all. I said, boy, if I ever get as bad as them, I'm going to AA. It only took 3 more weeks for me to get as bad as them, Went out to a cab for a weekend and we drank a whole bunch of beer. I was a beer drinker. A whole bunch of beer. Come back sick and just thought about Saturday night, thought about that weekend. And, I was watching the TV up there with the snow on it. You couldn't see anything out there. We're 90 miles from civilization. And I said, boy, if I ever get back to Lafayette, I want to go see some of them people that I met at that AA thing. And I did. And I walked into the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous on May 17th, 1974, and it took. I didn't really do a whole. I washed a lot of coffee cups, cleaned a lot of ashtrays, swept a lot of, and mopped a lot of floors, and got busy in the group. I became the group's GSR when I was 2 years sober. Became the district DCM when I was 4 years sober. Got busy in service work. After I met Joe, I started sponsoring a lot of people also, trying to get them into service work. I became delegate to the General Service Conference in 89 and 90, panel 39. My wife, Danny, became delegate to the General Service Conference in 97 and 98. So we've had a real good, active life in AA, both service-wide and 12-step wise with drunks, live drunks. So we've been busy. It took us to England one time. We met a couple from England, said, come on over, we'll put y'all up for 10 days. So we went over and they put us up for 10 days, Those kinds of things don't happen to me if I'd have been drinking in ballroom. Ain't nobody in no ballroom was going to invite me to London, But that business that I started got good. I ran for the city council in the town that I lived in and won. Served 4 years on the city council. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I'd have been drinking. In fact, I did run one time when I was drinking, and I came out last. 17 people running, and I was number 17. Then I ran for mayor and lost about 2% of the vote. And I wouldn't be out here if I'd have won that race for mayor. God knows what he's doing. I'll guarantee you that. Met my second wife in AA at an area assembly in Alexandria, Louisiana. She was a nurse from Baton Rouge, operating room nurse, made a lot of money, come spend weekends with me. I was just starting that business, that air conditioning business. And then she finally said, I'm moving in. I said, okay, come on. She moved in. One day she said, you gonna marry me? I said, I might as well. You're making all the money. So we went to see a judge friend of mine at the courthouse. And that judge says, I'm an appeals court judge, Bobby. I can't marry you. But if you go downstairs in the food stamp office, that guy in there can marry you. So I went downstairs and met this guy. I knew him. He was a justice of the peace. And we got married in the food stamp office. We had run by the club and picked up 2 witnesses, 2 drunks, and got married in the food stamp office. The guy that I knew well was running the food stamp office. And we had 6 good years. It's about what we had, and we run out of good years. And we got a divorce, and she got 2 houses. We had a rent house around the corner. We had a brick house. Both of them were brick houses. And I kept the business across the street and 1 rent house across the street. She don't want to have nothing to do with that business because it lost $6,000 in 86 when the economy went south. And she don't want to have nothing to do with that. We owed the IRS $8,000 that year. So I got the business, and the business took off after that. I mean, it really treated me well. I had some good customers. I had 3,000 good customers. Stayed involved in the assembly. Like I said, I became a delegate to the General Service Conference. I served on the Governor's Workforce Investment Board, which is handing out money to federal money to worthy causes, I guess you'd call it, So I got to do some things because I was sober. I couldn't do, I could get my head cracked open when I was drinking, but I couldn't do nothing when I was drinking. When I got sober, slowly, surely, the world got better. The women got better. The jobs got better. The attitudes got better. Nobody hated me so much anymore. So I moved out to, I'm doing on time. I moved out here to Hidden Hills. We were riding out. My daughter wanted to buy a house out here, and I had never heard of Hidden Hills. And it's a football gated community is what it is. And we went and looked at the house that she was looking at. She didn't buy it, but on the way out, I saw a for sale sign on a lot with a phone number. I took down that phone number and I took Danny out here. I said, "Would you like to live out here?" And she said, "Yeah, I sure would." So I called a guy up and we made the deal, and the lawyer passed the papers. A friend of mine passed. You get all kind of friends: lawyers, psychologists, psychiatrists, bums. You get all kind of friends when you get sober, because everybody gets drunk, no matter what your status in life is, you know. So we drew up plans on a piece of paper and called a friend of mine who's in the metal building business and asked him uh, if he would build this. We wanted to build a steel house, all steel frame. Because of hurricanes, we wanted it to stand 125-mile-an-hour winds, and we built it. And we built it like I told you a while ago, at the beginning of my talk. Built it. In the beginning, it wasn't large enough. We thought it was to be able to bring people in here on weekends and work with them. Danny was the one that was doing that at the time. And they started coming. They've been calling me this last month, wanting to know when in the hell I'm going to start doing something again out here. And I got to keep telling you, it's going to be after they give us a vaccine or something. We can't take any kind of chances like that. They're starting to have meetings here in town. Small. They can't put too many people in them. There's a morning meeting and a church meeting at night. Sun Up group meets every morning at 7 o'clock at a church in the big rec hall across the street from them, and Hub City group meets on Wednesday night at a big rec hall. But they're limited to how many people they can have at their meetings today, and I'm sure it's that way all around the world. We'll be back in business soon. If you know anybody want to bring a dozen guys out here, and all it costs you is for the housekeeper and the food, you're welcome to come out. Let me tell you about some weekends we started doing with our sponsees, people that we sponsored. We started, Don Fritz was away. Don was my sponsor for 17 years, and him and Jack were out here visiting once, and he said, why don't you start having something out here, bring people in, and I'll come in and be the first one to do a weekend. Don used to do big book weekends. And he'd rather do that than speak, to tell you the truth. And he told me that. And Danny and I had been to a couple of his weekends. Cruise one time. We went on a cruise with him, with Joe and Charlie doing a big book study also. So we lined it up. All the people that we sponsored, we called them. You want to come, you and your spouse? We figured it was going to cost so much to fly down in and cost so much for the food. That's how much it'll cost you. I got two neighbors. They use these homes that they have out here as camps. They come out on weekends sometimes. And they're not camps, I'll tell you, they're nice homes. Well, that was two-story, a loft type home. And I mow their grass every 2 weeks or so whenever the grass gets too long. I've been mowing their grass since I moved out here. So whenever I ask them to use their house, they're going to give it to me. They're going to start mowing their own grass. So we started having weekends out here with the people that we sponsored, and we both started bringing people in. We brought Don in. We brought Don Coyes in. Camille and Bob did a relationships and traditions once, and Mildred Frank from Canada. A bunch of people from around the country. Good friends of ours. We brought them in. Bob and Donna Halverson from Montana, and Kenny Down from Janice Del Campo. A bunch of people. And that's what we do out here. We try to get people excited in doing 12-step work, helping people, getting with people, and taking them through this book, because it's just a joy. The benefits from doing this thing. We've certainly been blessed, and the people that we met throughout this thing. Judy and Lou, I guess we met y'all 25 years ago at the first Fellowship of the Spirit, Colorado. We bought some gumbo. Well, yeah, we bought some crawfish ate too fair, that one. But we're having fun. Well, I'm about running out of steam now. If y'all want to open this thing up and y'all want to talk some, do that. It's up to the moderator. Thank you.